pretty simple effect. Yeah, it's good now. Hey Rasmus. So this is so I just made a really simple scene where I just put up the stuff that could be used to do like this sort of thing. I just found some cool, interesting ideas. Thanks. I was really trying to. I was inspired by the Zelda fire. I don't know if you've seen that. Like they have used some really interesting. I need to find that special scene where he shoots. Yeah. So you can see the sprite here, and it's not just some. It's not just a simple sprite sheet loop, because you can see that the animation is very random. Like you're doing some really interesting stuff. The fire here, as you can look at this location here. It's like just random noise, just kind of removing the fire. And it looks really good. It's very convincing. Yeah. And it does. The texture is not at all, because this looks like more like lava. Like it's more chunky bits in there. So I try to do some. It doesn't look exactly like it, because I don't know. I don't know how to do the exact thing, but I think this is how they did it. I can show you now. Let's do this. Alright. So I try to make it as simple as possible in the shader editor. Nice and commented. That's the way we like it. And some previews here, so what you can see what's going on. So I think, so this is the result you can see here. So this is the alpha that's masking the thing. So it looks very dynamic, it looks very random. It works well if you want to make a static scene, or if you want to use it as a particle, you could probably use that as well. Yeah, so basically what we're looking at is gradients. So I'm using this radial gradient exponential node that Unreal has. It's basically just copy this and show you guys. Just override or just do a multiply.
We sit in the sun in veils.
Oh my god.
We sleep
Takes a long time to create a multiply node.
and we dream.
For some reason.
Each of us dies.
Did it just crash? No. Jesus.
Alright.
Alright. Yeah, so I'm just using this multiply to preview what this outputs. So you can see that has just a radial gradient. It's a simple thing. You have the UVs. So I can just stick a texture coordinate in here just to get the UVs. So if I do like 0.5 on this one, then it's going to be offsetted in the UVs. Or scaled. It's going to be scaled. So stretched, I'd say. Nothing? Yeah, there we go. So now you see the whole radial thing is scaled side. So you can control the UVs here, which is cool. And you can also change the radius of this sphere or the circle. The density, I am not exactly what that does, but I think... Okay, so default value is 233. Okay, interesting. I guess that's the center, like the center color, if you can invert that or something. But yeah, basically a gradient. You could just use a texture, but I just use this because it's just there. You know, like I was too lazy to create a texture, so I'm like, fuck it. But so what I did is I offsetted the sphere, so it's on the bottom side of the UVs, and I have just controlled it a little bit. I just changed the center position, which is 0.5, 0.5, which is in the middle, and then I put 0.5 on X, kept it, and then on Y I did 1, which means it's going to go down a half more, and then I'm going to have the sphere down here. And then the fun starts here, the fire and distortion, which is pretty simple, because you have your texture coordinates, which basically defines the UVs for the texture sample that you use. And then you can use a panner node and add some time in there just to get some scrolling happening. And you could tell the scroll speed on X or Y, so the U and V in this case. So I want it to go up because fire goes up, right? and they'll tell it to go on Y. Then I multiply it a little bit so it's not super strong, so this is just a little weaker version of that, right? And this is where I do the distortion on this other texture, which I use another panner and another texture coordinate, different tiling and stuff like that, so I can kind of offset the two textures on each other. And what's going on in here, I'm adding to the texture coordinate is shift UV position, like object based on object position on the Y and Z, and Z axis is actually up in Unreal, which is super annoying because I always do something wrong, and that's mostly because I'm used to Y being up. But you can see here Z is up. Some people it makes sense, to me it never makes sense, and yeah, fuck my life. Either way, that took me that while to figure out, then I realized it's Z. And I want if I align this like this, I want the Y and Z 2D space coordinates to be added and based on the object position, which means texture's offset will depend on the object's position in the world. So that means that if I move this, it will shift in the UVs. So you can see it's popping all the way. Yeah, man, I'm used to Y being up, man. Z sounds like the depth buffer is always on the Z. But yeah, so every time I move this thing, it will be a random, so I can have two of them, and then they will be in different times, and they won't be synchronized, which is good, because then you can prop it or make some cool stuff like this. You want to do any artsy-fartsy thing and create something, then you can just use that position thing, shift the UVs, make it more interesting. This is cool. If you put it on a sphere, it kind of looks like it's coming down into the atmosphere or something, you know? That's kind of cool. I never see that. That's the beauty with gradients, you know? Well, so you do the offset. I add them all together. So I basically add the UVs on that texture for this one. So this texture goes in here and offsets the UVs for this texture. And now you can see that they're kind of like overlapping in different speeds because I have different panners. And it's like warping the texture because it's offsetting the UVs in X and Y, or U and V, right? So you're getting this super weird distortion-y looking effect. And then I use that. And I do it on the fire shape, which is the main gradient, which is this bottom one here. And I am offsetting the UVs once again. Yes, so the UVs for the sphere I'm offsetting up with the same, because it's using the same texture, everything. So time and everything, and then offsetting the Y axis of the UVs. You can see here I've split the UVs with the mask R and G, so the X and Y, the R and G is X, Y. And append them again, and append is basically combining the two vectors and spitting out a float 2 vector again. So you can split it and combine it, and then you can edit in between, basically. Yeah, Blender, yeah, Z's being up in Blender, but then, I mean, that's great for you, man, because then you have Blender and Unreal and everything just works out fine. I use Maya and I have to export with like Z being up, and I forget that so many times because that's not my default setting, you know. Either way, so yeah. So this is where the actual thing is happening, the UV distortion. That's what you really want. Since we get a free gradient, what happens is the gradient would get distorted, and the higher it goes up, I actually add a power node here just to make a smooth release. I try to make it as, maybe that doesn't make sense, I have to explain. So what happens here is the power, you remember when I showed you the power node with the curve and everything? So it's kind of like a gamma curve. It's like smoothing it out. So what the smooth release does is I take the inverse of that gradient. So I just made a new gradient and exactly the same. I just flipped it with the -1, and then I've reduced the strength by like 60%. And then I'm using that to mask out the edges so the fire doesn't clip on the edges on the texture, on the UVs. And yeah, and this smooth release basically makes sure that it's sharp here. The gamma curve is very sharp here. So when it reaches up to when it fades out of the inverted gradient, which is this one, when it fades into this white, that flame that fades into the white or offset it into the white will become smoother. So this power will basically make the curve smoother up here, which means that it looks like the flame is sharp in the start, and then when it exits, it looks like it's being thinner and like fading out in a nice, like here it's gonna get faded. It's gonna be sharp in the beginning, and then it's gonna fade out to a bigger gradient. Like you can see here, this is super odd. So here you can see that's very gradienty and soft, and then it's very sharp here. That's what the smooth release does. And then of course I'm using the black body once again, which is the temperature. So it's like 3000 degrees. That's like super hot for a fire, but I guess that's fine. And then the opacity depth fade to do the pixel depth alpha, so it's soft smooth blending in here, so it doesn't do like a sharp, gross looking scene. And that is how I did the Zelda fires thing, sort of like Zelda. I don't know how they exactly did it, but I think it's like this, because it looks procedurally random. It doesn't necessarily make new same shapes. Like maybe sometime at some point it will make the same shape like it did 10 minutes ago, you know, but you don't really comprehend that anyway, so it doesn't matter as long as it sells the look. And it's very cheap because it's just the shader plane. I mean, currently I'm wasting a lot of alpha space that could certainly be tweaked and made much better, but I'm just showing that you can get this kind of animation in a shader, which is really cool, without using actual flow maps. So this UV distortion kind of works like a flow map, because I mean, it doesn't have a vector, it's just black and white, so it doesn't really have a direction, so it's just gonna go in a linear it's just gonna go in all the directions at the same time. So you would get these odd, I can even like try this, so if I do it like super high, then you're gonna start to get some really funky. Yeah, you could put them in the particles, of course, and I mean, I think so. Now you can get some really stylized stuff coming out here. That looks like that's the artifacts you would get when you add a float without a vector, and you see you get these kind of like holes that kind of unwrap around. That's like the pixel interpolation, and it's like super strong, and it's like wrecking it. But it's really cool though. It looks pretty cool. You can do lightning strikes that looks like that, you know? You can do a lot of cool things with just warping UVs. I might actually set up a particle system sometime. This is gonna look broken. So that, like, if you want to do like a geoglyphic cool fire for some game, then this could work. That's sure. So you can see it's very sharp in the beginning, and then it gets a bit more faded in the end. So that actually looks pretty neat, to be honest. That looks very funky and sort of sci-fi. And you can make that fire blue, you know? You can do a bunch of stuff with this. Yeah. So you can see here the alpha. It's pretty interesting. You can play around with the power node again. So if I remove this add node, and the exponent would be, it's not super sharp all the time. So if I put like 5, then it's gonna get really soft. Now it takes a long time to compile this. There's so many values in here now. So now it's very soft, and gradient's gonna get really interesting. But you can also try to make it more realistic, and I'll put this back to 0.2. I think I had it on. Apply that. So the texture I'm using to pan across the whole thing is actually This is the texture. Shit. Yeah, this is the texture. So this is interesting. This is all used in Photoshop, of course. Like I made this in Photoshop. So I used Gaussian blur before just to get more smoother shapes in the fire, but now I went back and now it's very crisp. So if I save this and the crisp version, it kind of looks like a height map. Let's see if I could just where is it? Re-import. So now you see it's got more detail into the fire. So now it almost looks more realistic. Like it has way more interesting stuff happening in there. It's still too strong. Whatever. So it has way more shape in there, and that's because of the noise. So that could all be controlled, and you can do exactly what you want with the texture, and you can make it look more like Zelda. I think Zelda has more like a bubble effect look in the textures to make it look more chunky. Yes. So it's pretty, you can modulate it as much as you want, and you can create it how you want, which is really cool. I was gonna do something. Right. Yeah, I'm gonna show you how to make this texture really fast. If you want to make some fiery noise. So what I did is render clouds. Just kidding. The difference clouds actually. These are more interesting because when you make difference clouds and you do Control F to redo it, you start to get these kind of difference between the clouds, right? So you get more of the line shape, which is more like a lightning slash fiery cool effect. And you can keep pressing Control F to kind of stack them. You get the difference every time, and you can just keep going until you get the fidelity you want, and you can sort of generate a really intricate piece of noise. There you go. And then you have this pretty interesting noise, and then you can start like changing the levels and stuff like that to get the crispness. It's pretty simple, man. You don't have to use Substance or anything to do this kind of material. You just pop up in Photoshop and you'll be able to do it in a heartbeat. So I'm gonna, oops, I have to Gaussian blur this. Like that. And that will make this look more cartoony, like bigger shapes, smoother. So it's very simple to modulate, and the shader isn't that necessarily heavy at all. Actually, it's pretty simple, and this could be used a lot. This could be used in many things. You can put it on many shapes as well. That's my old Terminators. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what else. If you guys have any questions, Shader, that would be good, because I kind of run out of ideas now. Not really sure. Yeah, I hope you guys can get some inspiration out of this, or apply this sort of, because you don't have to think. Always start simple, you know, like always start simple. If you think fire, you always think, oh man, I have to make a sprite sheet. Yeah, I'll upload this on YouTube. Don't worry. I'll put this up on YouTube. I'll do this. I'll do it like a slowly panning this thing so the YouTubers can just copy paste the shit. There we go. Nice and easy. There we go. Yeah. And next time, I'm probably gonna do more streams on wind, on vertex shaders. And this is what it looks like. This is just a test. It's not done yet, but this is how it's gonna work. It's meant for like grass and stuff like that, like small plants, and a cheap way to do a wind effect. I know Unreal has their own wind system or some shit like that, but I hate to work with things that I don't understand, and it's better to make something from scratch and just kind of figure it out and then apply that, and then you would understand everything, which is cool. You can also, if you want to tie this to wind, fire, you could actually, in the UVs, tell the distortion to go in the direction of the wind, which means that the distorting will have some sort of direction to it, which is possible. But the problem is these are not camera facing. I mean, I guess they could be if you particle them up. So yeah, never mind. That would just work. Yes, I am all out of ideas. So I'll probably stop streaming now, and I will put this up on YouTube, and everything is gonna be fine. And somewhere next week or after that, I'll do some more streaming. Yeah, definitely wind would make it very much more random. I'll like give it some direction. Because currently just going up. But another tweak you could look at is actually the. Wait, hold on. Did I have this? Oh yeah, I haven't shown you this thing. Oh my god. That's alright, it's compiling shaders. Let it. I'm just gonna leave it there and do its thing, and then let it bake. Holy shit. Oh my god. Alright, now we're back. Alright. Hello. So I tried to make something more realistic with that spherical 3D explosion, if you guys remember that. Added some debris to it as well. That uses the procedural explosion. I think this one is a smoke. Yeah, this is like the 3D smoke using the same sort of system. I can say this, it's not cheap. Just gonna say that really fast. It's not cheap, it's super expensive. The smoke is terrible. But the explosion is fine, because you can start to modulate how it's gonna alpha out and when it's gonna, you know, die. But the smoke is like constant screen killing, graphics card melting thing. Alright. This is something I love to do. And you can like, yeah, do some matrix, and there's like a shockwave in there using the same system. It looks like dust, kind of pressuring out. But you can kind of see the laggy ass vertex data just kind of moving around in there. But you don't really see that in the fast animation. Phone? But yeah, you can do a lot of stuff. Procedural is the way, man. Guys, you gotta go procedural. This is the only way. If you're lazy to make sprite sheets, then do it the cool way. The cool kids do this. I don't know if you saw this reads, but this is the fire. I'm gonna put this all up on YouTube so you guys can see how it's built if you want to keep that. I have the shader and everything done. god. Holy crap. Alright. Yeah. I think I'm done now. So, over and out. If you got questions, just send them my way on Discord. Or just message me anywhere. I guess you can find me. And yeah, take care guys. Thanks for joining.